Story out of North Carolina is absolutely senseless. It all went down on Saturday at this Taco Bell, where police say a man was at the drive-thru. Apparently, the man placed his order and went up to the window, but became angry after thinking that he was shortchanged. This led to an argument, which led to the man going into the restaurant to continue his dispute with the clerk. As he then went to leave, he allegedly shot the fast food employee multiple times. The man fled as the employee was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Police highlighted the trivial nature of this violent attack.
What's one life worth? It's definitely not worth any change, and it's definitely not worth any bill or anything.
Psychologists have found that just the mere exposure to fast food logos can lead people to become more impatient, and in states with Wild West style firearm regulations like North Carolina, studies have found that loose gun laws were associated with a 24% increase in the rate of firearm assaults. Critics say there are just too many guns in our country. The 67-year-old man who shot the Taco Bell employee was arrested and faces multiple charges, including assault with a deadly weapon.
Now this is crazy. Now we didn't heard about somebody shooting at Jack in the Box with a gun, but now a customer going up to someone's job, Taco Bell happened to be, and this happened. You know, mental health is real, and I understand what Angie is saying about there's technically way more guns than there is people, because a lot of people usually own more than one gun. But when guns are in the hands of people like this is when it becomes a problem, and that is true, it do become an issue. And that is something that this world is going through way too goddamn much.
What Joshua and Stephen did is they dragged Bill down to a basement. They tied him to a pole. They propped his head up, pillowcase over his head. One of the officers shouted, "Who's in the house?" He said, "The girls are still in the house. You better get going." Our story today takes us to the town of Cheshire, Connecticut. A place where not a whole lot happens, but a whole lot did happen. On the 23rd of July 2007, this 911 call came in from a bank. A woman named Jennifer had walked in to withdraw money and had told the teller something, frankly, the kind of thing you assume is a joke because it is so horrifying.
My name is Mary Lyons. I'm the banking center manager. We have a lady who is in our bank right now who says that her husband and children are being held at their house. The people are in a car outside the bank. She is getting $15,000 to bring out to them that if the police are told, they will kill the children and the husband.
So this is crazy for the simple fact these people didn't let these folks take them to the bank and say withdraw some money. Now, I don't understand how they knew or anything like that, but we're about to get into the story and hear a little bit more about it.
Her name is Jennifer Pettit, P-E-T-I-T.
William Pettit and Jennifer Hawk met all the way back in 1985 when he was a confident young third-year resident and she was an experienced oncology nurse at UPMC Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh. Before the end of that same year, 1985, the blissful young couple would marry and move to Cheshire, Connecticut, where they settled, and Bill, he began working as an endocrinologist. Jennifer, she was health director at a boarding school. On October 15th, 1989, along came their first daughter, Haley, followed 6 years later by Michaela. Haley Pettit was a star track athlete and dreamed of the day she would be a doctor, just like her dad. With a doctor father, nurse mother, and a big sister dead set on medical school, it was all but inevitable that Michaela would also follow them into what had become the family business at that point. Shortly after 6 p.m. in the evening, folks, on the 22nd of July, 2007, mother Jennifer and younger daughter Michaela, they went out hunter-gathering to the local grocery store. Michaela, she was itching to cook up a feast for the fam. 7 p.m., the entire Pettit family were all sitting down, munching away on their pasta and bruschetta. They watched TV, and eventually everyone retired to their beds. By 10, the whole family was asleep, and everything was quiet in the Pettit house. What the family didn't know, they were already doomed. When Jennifer and Michaela were out shopping at the grocery store, someone had seen them, followed them home. 26-year-old Joshua Komisarjevsky had been out of prison for just a matter of months.
So you mean to tell me this guy was following them in the store when they was grocery shopping and then actually followed them home? Now, you can tell this is a very good family. They all doctors and nurses and all in the medical field is what I'm trying to say. So they came from a very good upscale family with good morals and all that shit, because even the daughter wanted to be like the mom and the dad. And then you got this scumbag who only been out for a couple months on some crazy shit. So I'm gonna shut my mouth and we're gonna see exactly how this story play out.
In July 2007, having served just 5 years of a 9-year sentence for several burglaries. Joshua was born on August 10th, 1980 to his 16-year-old mother, whose family had a long history of mental illness and addiction issues, and he was put up for adoption 2 weeks later. But Joshua was not alone. He had an accomplice, 42-year-old Stephen Hayes. Joshua Komarzewski met Stephen Hayes when the two men were fresh out of prison in 2006. Hayes was born May 30th, 1963 in Homestead, Florida, and like Joshua, he had shown earlier worrying signs of his later behavior. Hayes' own brothers would say that Stephen...
Damn, so this guy came from a mental health or a mental patient home, just like the other guy came from a mentally messed up home.
A sociopath from the very beginning, and would not only deliberately hurt and injure his siblings, but he would manipulate their parents into believing he was the one who had been the victim. And so at 3 a.m, the gruesome twosome were outside the Pettit house. On his way into the house, Joshua found a baseball bat, a Louisville Slugger. He found it as he gained entry into the Pettit house via an unlocked basement door. And he soon discovered Bill fast asleep on the couch in that quiet, dark house, and he stood there. Joshua would say he stood there watching Bill sleep for quite some time. So with a baseball bat in his hand, he finally gave in, wink wink, with what he would say was some encouragement, from Stephen. And so he took that baseball bat to Bill Pettit's head as he was asleep on the couch. Now Bill Pettit, big guy for you, he had no chance to fight back. He was incapacitated in seconds. One of them asked him where the safe was. Bill said they didn't have no safe. And so after incapacitating Bill, Stephen and Joshua, they went upstairs to where the girls were. Haley was in her room, and so they tied her to the bed with a pillowcase over her head. Michaela and Jennifer had fallen asleep reading a Harry Potter book in Jennifer and Bill's bed. Joshua took Michaela to her own room and restrained her as Hayes tied up Jennifer, each with a pillowcase pulled over their heads. All the time, Joshua continued to reassure them that they wouldn't be hurt if they just did what they were told and didn't cause any trouble. All they wanted was money, they told them. And so what Joshua and Stephen did is they dragged Bill down to the basement, really. They tied him to a pole, they propped his head up, pillowcase over his head. They then went back up the stairs, proceeded to ransack the entire home. This, that, these, nose, in the pocket. They took each of the family's wallets and even a jar of loose change. Not quite the score, though, they were expecting. All that would change, though, because Joshua, he found a Bank of America bank book, and they found one that had $30,000. Joshua and Stephen would no longer be leaving with what they found in wallets and some loose change. Now, the plan changed on a dime. It changed very, very swiftly that they were going to wait until the bank opened and have Jennifer go in, withdraw $15,000. The robbers selected Joshua to keep an eye on the girls and Bill, while Stephen Hayes would take Jennifer to the bank to make the withdrawal. All the while, Joshua was continuing to reassure Jennifer that if she just plays along, does what they want, sticks to the plan, nobody gets hurt. However, because Joshua and Stephen, they broke in at 3 a.m, they had a couple of hours to kill before the bank opened, stick on the TV, looking to watch Pot in the Kettle. Stephen Hayes left the house. He drove to a Citgo gas station just down the road, and he had some empty gallon jugs. He filled them up with gasoline. The cashier said he was just a regular guy filling up these tanks with gas, nothing weird. And then he went back. Hayes and Jennifer, they would drive to the bank. Hayes would keep the car running. Jennifer would go in, make the withdrawal. They would go back to the house. Around 10 minutes after receiving the call from the bank at 9:27 a.m, several marked and unmarked cars were on their way to the house at Sorghum Mill Drive. And this is when another 911 call came in from someone who lived right next door. 62-year-old David Simchek had found his neighbor, Dr. Bill Pettit, in his driveway. Bill had managed to escape the house. One of the officers shouted at Bill to say who's in the house. The only thing Bill would respond with was, "The girls are in the house." And as Bill was murmuring this, passing in and out of consciousness, covered in blood, smoke began to pour out of the Pettit house. At the same time, officers forming a perimeter around the house had seen two men sprint out of the Pettit house and jump into Jennifer's minivan. Police officers clearly saw they were driving too quickly for this to be anything run-of-the-mill. Just minutes later, the two fleeing men smashed their would-be escape car straight into an oncoming police cruiser. Officers following quickly in a second vehicle saw all of this happen, and they ordered the two men to get out of the car, get on your stomachs. Joshua Komisarjevsky and Stephen Hayes, they complied. They got out of the car, they got on their stomachs, hand behind their back, and they were asked by the police, was there anybody in that house? He said, the girls are still in the house. You better get going. Fire crews responded almost immediately and were the first ones through the door. First, they found 17-year-old Haley. Officially, her cause of death was due to smoke inhalation. She'd tried desperately to get away, but had succumbed to the smoke only a few feet from her room. Next to be found was 11-year-old Michaela. She was still in her bed, and, like her big sister, she had been overcome by smoke inhalation. Michaela had died before the flames got to her. Last to be found, but actually the first to die, was Jennifer. Jennifer hadn't even lived long enough to experience the fire. She'd been strangled to death not long after herself and Stephen had returned from the bank. Stephen Hayes was found guilty and he was sentenced to death. Joshua was up next, and the court heard every excuse under the sun. Again, the jury returned a guilty verdict and the death penalty was awarded.
I was glad for the girls that there was justice, because I think it's a just verdict, but mostly I was sad for the loss that we have all suffered.
Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Please take care of each other and yourselves, because I love you. Mike out.
My condolences goes out to that guy and his family, just for the simple fact, you know, these dudes, petty thieves, sent these folks in the house to steal they money that they work for, take money that they work for, and then they gonna shoot and kill him, burn the house down and make it look like, you know, it was a house fire. But thankfully he was able to be brave enough to get away. Now unfortunately he didn't get away soon enough so his family could be saved, but at least justice was, you know, served, because they was able to capture the two guys that they saw doing all this dumb nonsense. So y'all be safe out there and always watch your back. It don't matter where you at. Be careful.